Deadline, Georgia racing to complete a hand recount by day's end. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Well, Trump's lawyers continue to fight in the courts, and the president stands by his claims that he won the White House. Tonight, the focus is on Georgia, where the Secretary of State there says Joe Biden won fair and square. But CBN's Caitlin Burke reports, as votes are being recounted, errors are being discovered.
Georgia is on track to finish a recount of votes from 159 counties by midnight tonight. But just this morning, the chairman of Georgia's Republican Party says he's requested an official investigation.
In a series of tweets, David Schaefer explained that a major error was discovered, giving Joe Biden more than 9,500 votes when he'd actually only received a little over 1,000. The miscounted batch of ballots had already been signed off on by 2 official counters. Had the error not been discovered, it would have completely canceled out the gains that Trump has made in counties where uncounted votes have been discovered. The Trump campaign is also going after a recount in 2 Wisconsin counties, citing illegally altered absentee ballots, illegally issued absentee ballots, and illegal advice given by government officials in regards to identification laws. Meanwhile, in Michigan, Republicans on the Board of Canvassers initially refused to certify ballots from Wayne County.
I believe that we do not have complete and accurate information in those poll books.
But late Tuesday night, a stunning reversal, the board voting unanimously to certify the votes after all. Members of Trump's legal team say the Republican board members changed their votes after relentless pressure and accusations of racism. In an interview with CBN's David Brody, Laura Trump said the campaign's focus remains on making sure every legal vote is counted. And she criticized the mainstream media for rushing the process.
It is not up to the mainstream media to decide who is president of the United States. It is up to the electors around the country in each state, and they have not decided who it is yet.
The Trump campaign maintains the president won the election fair and square, and they believe that when the dust settles, he'll be serving 4 more years in the White House. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. Well, joining us now for more is Fred Lucas, the Daily Signal's chief national affairs correspondent and author of Tainted by Suspicion. Fred, it's good to have you. Georgia is on the mind of American voters. I think Ray Charles said it best, and so is Wisconsin in 2020. How do things look right now? Will a recount change the outcome for President Trump?
That's hard to say. Historically, recounts don't make big changes, but one can never know. I mean, this kind of makes you think back to the Florida recounts in 2000, 20 years ago. So, which basically tells you contested presidential elections are nothing entirely new.
It is hard to believe that that was 20 years ago. You're getting a little bit ahead of me. I will ask you about that in just a minute. But first,
right.
You know, some media outlets, the drumbeat is getting louder for President Trump to concede and end his legal challenges. How does that, Fred, affect potentially voter confidence and the election process?
Well, this is something that if you look historically, I mean, I get to this point again. This has not gone on that long. I mean, the 2000 race, that went on for 36 days. If you go back to 1876, issues like that, that went on from November into March before they figured that out. 1824, that was a basically litigated election in the House of Representatives. So what we're looking at here is not an unheard of thing. It's certainly not unprecedented to challenge the outcome of a presidential race. And right now it's just working its way through the courts. So you might just want to give it some time.
Fred, I think the count, at least earlier in this week, was Trump won for 26 in court cases. Do you think any of these cases will make it up to the Supreme Court?
I think it looks a little less likely right now that it can make it the same way that we saw with Bush v. Gore. However, there are some legitimate claims out of Pennsylvania. And I've heard a lot of observers say that perhaps the Supreme Court should step in here in Pennsylvania, whether it makes a difference in the outcome or not. And the reason for that is because some strange things happened in Pennsylvania. The state Supreme Court basically made law in that state. in terms of election, when the ballots can come in and so forth. So that's something, and from there, the Secretary of State made her own rules. So that's a case where maybe the Supreme Court should step in and say, we don't want this to happen again.
Fred, we're really tight here on time, maybe about 15 seconds left. As you said, it took a little over a month for the 2000 presidential election to be determined. Any idea on the timeline here now?
I do believe we will know the winner by December 8th, certainly by December 14th when the Electoral College meets.
All right, Fred Lucas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, tonight, former Vice President Joe Biden continues to move forward with plans to assume the presidency despite the Trump campaign filing for a recount today in the state of Wisconsin. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now. Ben, looks like the coronavirus is still top of mind for Team Biden.
Yeah, John, you're right. Today, Biden met with his transition team and then held a virtual event with healthcare workers. Biden says his primary focus, as you were talking about, John, remains on the pandemic and containing the virus. He heard firsthand from frontline workers and the challenges they are facing with COVID. Biden then talked about the encouraging results from the latest vaccine trials.
Relating to the biggest promise we have with two drug companies coming along and finding 95% effectiveness, efficiency in the vaccines, which is an enormous promise. So I just want to tell you that's the only slowdown right now that we have. We put together, I think, a first-rate team that you would all be proud of.
Now, Biden ended his virtual event telling the press pool that was there that he'll talk to them tomorrow. And John, as you mentioned earlier in the show, President Trump has not conceded the election, but that has not stopped Biden for preparing for January. In fact, this week he unveiled members of his team and is even deciding cabinet nominations as we get closer to January 20th. John?
All right, that was CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Thanks, Ben. Well, for more on this, let's turn now to David Brody, CBN chief political analyst. David, President Trump has been uncharacteristically out of sight and very quiet. What are you hearing? How is he doing?
Well, John, I just spoke with Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary. We're going to have some of that interview tomorrow on Faith Nation. And I will tell you this, that she says he is hard at work, that she spoke to him. She speaks to him every day, that he is working on the coronavirus and the vaccine and everything that's coming out with that. And throughout the day, he is hard at work. And she believes this is just a bunch of media ridiculousness, if you will, talking about how he's kind of hunkered down and in and isolated. But the truth of the matter is that this is a president that we have been accustomed to seeing to be very accessible, and he hasn't been in the last week or so. And so I think part of the strategy, at least, is to let those lawsuits play out and let him do his thing on Twitter, but at the same time, keep the comments at a minimum.
David, you're teeing me up perfectly as you silence your phone. The legal team has lost a lot of those lawsuits. I think you just heard me talk to Fred Lucas there with the Daily Signal, 1 for 26 so far in the courts. How is the campaign characterizing that?
Well, obviously, there have been some losses in the course. As you might imagine, the Trump campaign is spinning it a bit differently, basically saying, hold on, give us some time. Of course, I've been saying that now for about a week and a half. Give us some time. And we've got some evidence to show you. And indeed, what have we seen, John? I mean, we have seen. And this is not the Trump campaign saying this. This is not me saying this. This is the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter are is that in Georgia, there's been some more more votes for Trump after we've seen some of the disclosure down there. And we know there's going to be a recount in Wisconsin. We know that in Wayne County, there were 2 Republicans refusing to certify, at least at one point, the results of the election. They still want a full audit. And I go on and on. We haven't even gotten to Dominion voting systems yet. So, they believe there's a treasure trove here. Those are the words that Kayleigh McEnany said to me a couple days ago. And they are about to show us all this treasure trove, but they need to do it pretty quickly.
David, real quickly here, we've only got a little less than a minute. Today we learned that the Trump campaign paid a down payment of $3 million to the state of Wisconsin for a partial recount. Biden leads there by some 20,000 votes. What's the strategy here?
Well, look, the $3 million, kind of like a bang for your buck. You know, for $3 million, you know, you've got hundreds of thousands of votes that are in dispute, and that's where they want the recount. To do a whole state would be $8, $9, $10 million, but they don't need to recanvass and recount the whole state. What they need to do is recount the Milwaukee area specifically. That's where they need to focus on. So you know what? More bang for your buck. Spend $3 million in Milwaukee instead of $10 million for the entire state.
Hey, that does sound like a bargain. CBN's David Brody, thank you so much for your insights.
You bet.
Well, to health news, the deadly rise in COVID cases across the country is forcing state and local governments to reimpose harsh measures to combat the virus, with Republican governors adopting mask mandates in schools, abandoning plans to reopen in-person classroom training. And the list of restrictions keeps on growing.
It means no indoor parties, group meals, football watching groups, no visiting between households, no indoor weddings, funerals, baby showers.
And in a statement Tuesday, the White House Coronavirus Task Force called the spread, quote, aggressive and unrelenting without evidence of improvement, but rather further deterioration, adding that the current mitigation efforts are inadequate. Meanwhile, drug maker Pfizer says it has met requirements for emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration for its vaccine and plans to file for application within days. Also overnight, the FDA authorized the first fully at-home COVID testing kit. It would allow people from the comfort of their own homes to get results in 30 minutes or less. Well, for more on the latest developments, we turn now to CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, Pfizer says it's ready to apply for emergency use authorization. How soon could this vaccine be made available to the public?
Some people could be getting their shots in 1 month, John, and it might not just be the Pfizer vaccine. It could also be the Moderna vaccine. The FDA commission that will pore over Pfizer's data is reportedly scheduled to do that in the second week in December. By that time, Moderna might have gathered enough safety data to make their application as well. And remember, the two vaccines are very similar, both using messenger RNA technology. So if the FDA approves the vaccine, then the CDC has to look at the data and make its recommendation. If they give it the green light, they will also say who gets it first, because there's only enough of the two vaccines for 20 million people at this point. More will be made later, but our country has a population of 350 million, so only the most vulnerable will get it right away. Likely that will be hospital workers and nursing home residents, John.
Lori Johnson breaking down the math for us. Lori, can you talk to us more about these in-home testing kits? How effective is that, and what will the impact be?
Well, it's a great invention, although the manufacturers say it won't be available to the general public until spring. The main selling point is that it's very accurate as those lab tests. Right now, the rapid results tests are not very accurate. These are the ones that give results in just 15 minutes. They have a tendency to report false negatives, meaning a person takes the test, it says the person doesn't have COVID, but in fact, they actually do. So this new home test will save people from waiting in lines, waiting to get results, and prevent spread of the disease at testing sites. It'll be available in Northern California and Miami soon, but not to everyone else for a while.
All right, CBN's Lori Johnson. Thank you so much, Lori.
Sure.
And coming up after the break, fallout over a breakup between a Christian anti-trafficking group and a high-profile Hollywood fundraising campaign. You're watching Faith Nation on the CBN News Channel.
Before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
And welcome back. HBO and Hollywood actress Melissa McCarthy have dumped a Christian anti-trafficking organization from their 20 Days of Kindness campaign. The campaign kicked off last week with a promise to donate $20,000 to 20 good causes, but after a Daily Beast article highlighted the founder of Exodus Cry, Benjamin Nolow, for past remarks speaking out against abortion, homosexuality, and the commercial sex industry, McCarthy pulled the plug on associating with the nonprofit.
We blew it. We made a mistake, and we backed a charity that, upon proper vetting, stands for everything that we do not. So I want to thank everyone on social media who said, "What are you doing? Are you sure you want to back this?" Because the answer is no, we do not. We have pulled it.
And with us now is Benjamin Nolow, the founder of Exodus Cry. Benjamin, you're no stranger to the CBN audience. Many are familiar with your documentaries and your fight against sex trafficking. First off, did you see this coming?
No, we did not. We were delighted when we heard from HBO and Melissa that they were going to highlight us as a part of this campaign. It's not something we sought out. They sought us out and told us that we had been handpicked, that they wanted to promote our work, and so we were excited to be represented and for our work to be honored in that way.
Were you contacted at all by the Daily Beast when it came to that article, and what brought your group's attention to Melissa McCarthy and HBO when they decided to rescind that offer?
Yeah, I mean, you know, our work at Exodus Cry stands for itself. We've been doing this for a long time, for 13 years now. We are supported by 300 other organizations worldwide. We have consultative status at the United Nations. We've worked with helping survivors and victims of human trafficking on the front lines. So I think, you know, they probably recognized that body of work and selected us for those reasons. We have gained a higher profile this year with a campaign holding Pornhub accountable for profiting from and enabling videos of real sexual abuse. And as a result of that, I think we have gained more enemies in the media who have an agenda to maintain the status quo of the sexploitation industry. And so by virtue of that, a number of hit pieces have been written about us, things that are many statements have been made about Exodus Cry that are false, that are misleading, that are defamatory, that are slanderous. And in our, you know, culture today, it's not hard to stir up the mob against you, if you will. And
Benjamin.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you, you know, your website has a myths versus truth section where you explicitly state Exodus Cry doesn't take a position on abortion and serves all victims of sexual exploitation, including the LGBTQ community. How does that square up against the characterization of your group in the Daily Beast?
Yeah, it's unfortunate we've been labeled as an anti-anything other than sex trafficking, because the fact is that Exodus Cry has never, ever participated in any work other than fighting against sex trafficking and supporting victims of sex trafficking and survivors.
Benjamin, we so appreciate your time. Thank you for taking time to explain what's happened to you and your group, and we'll be right back after this break.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Well, it's a freedom many people here in the United States often take for granted, the freedom to worship. Not the case in Africa, Asia, or the Middle East, where millions of people face hostility for their faith. New figures from the Pew Research Center show restrictions are at their highest levels. CBN's George Thomas spoke with an expert who monitors religious intolerance.
Here to discuss the worsening conditions for religious freedom around the world is Elizabeth Cassidy, Director of Research and Policy with the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Elizabeth, great to have you on the broadcast. The Pew Research Center has been tracking restrictions on freedom of religion in 198 countries since 2007. According to them, religious persecution is worsening worldwide, right?
Pew did just put out their latest report. Yes, that's correct. They do show that the trend of religious restrictions, which is not necessarily religious freedom violations, have been consistently worsening since the first report that covered 2007. Yes, that's correct.
From Pew's survey, it appears that dictators, and especially governments that are not democracies, are the worst persecutors of people of faith. Why is that?
That's true. Authoritarian states, in our reviewing of the evidence on this at USERF as well, we have many authoritarian states that we report on that severely violate religious freedom. They tend to want to control every aspect of their citizens' lives, including any religious beliefs or practices. This year was the first time that Pew looked at government type and compared it to their data, and you're absolutely correct. They did find that there was a association between authoritarian regimes and high levels of government restrictions on religion.
Are there areas of the world that are worse than others for people of faith?
Pew definitely shows that the highest government restrictions levels are in the Middle East region and the Asia Pacific region, and that's been pretty consistent throughout their reporting. In terms of USERF reporting, we do also report on a number of countries in those regions. As I mentioned, our lens is a little bit different because we're reporting on religious freedom violations, which means violations within the meaning of the international standards on freedom of religion or belief, as well as the U.S. law, the International Religious Freedom Act that we work under. Not every restriction is necessarily a violation, but we also do see a number of countries in both the MENA and Asia Pacific regions where we have serious concerns.
Why are people of faith, Elizabeth, considered a threat to governments around the world?
Well, for authoritarian governments, as I said, there's a need to control, a want to control. Anything outside the government's control is viewed as threatening, religion included, religion in particular, because it is a source of sort of belonging and inspiration for people outside of the state.
Research continues to show that Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world, right?
What the Pew study continues to show is that there are reports of harassment against Christians in more countries than any other group. Muslims have reports in the second highest number of countries, both very, very similar numbers. That's also been consistent. I think it shows how sort of widespread harassment on religious grounds can be. I think a very striking figure is that the group that is harassed in the third highest number of countries is the Jewish community, which is quite striking given how small the Jewish community is in terms of global population.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me today, George.
You're welcome.
And thank you, George. Coming up, a voice like silver and a heart of gold. So could her latest act be Dolly Parton's greatest gift of all? We explain when Faith Nation returns.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
A Millsburg Falls man coming...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
And finally tonight, Dolly Parton is famous for singing, acting, writing, and her charitable work. Tonight, the world is learning more about her big heart. After learning that Vanderbilt University was making exciting new advancements in COVID vaccines, Dolly decided to donate to the cause. Her $1 million donation funded coronavirus research and the development of one of the most promising vaccines so far from Moderna.
I'm just happy that anything I do can help somebody else. And when I donated the money to the COVID fund, I just wanted it to do good. And evidently it is. And let's just hope we find a cure real soon.
The Moderna vaccine has shown a 95% protection rate from the virus trials so far. The drug company is currently applying for emergency use with the FDA and said it could produce 1 billion doses by the end of the year. Always nice to end the day with a little bit of Dolly. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Faith Nation. We hope to see you back here tomorrow.